at your school quite a few times, and I don't really see much else out there. So
You
where do
probably
you,
need to
where
go
do you
to
get some
Bristol.
shout? What's that?
You probably need to go to Bristol.
Oh, okay.
It's like 20
How far
minutes.
is that drive?
20 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad at
15,
all.
20 minutes, not at all.
Yeah. Is that where you live?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's more stuff there.
Yeah, yeah.
How
Not
close
bad
are
at
you
all.
to like Christiansburg and Blacksburg?
It's like 1 hour. We are exactly 1.5 from Radford. So
Okay,
around 1 hour from Virginia Tech. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
it's
You're
close.
past all of that, past
Mhm,
down further south, down 81,
mhm,
right? Yeah.
mhm.
Cool, man.
Oh, cool. So yeah, we're talking with Filipe Barateiro from Emory and Henry College in it's in Emory, Virginia, right? Is that
Mhm.
right? Which is in the southwest corner of Virginia. He's the head women's coach of women's soccer head women's coach, the women's coach at the college there. So and you can tell once Felipe starts speaking that he has an accent. He's from Portugal, which I think is really cool. To that, there's just different perspectives of soccer coming in and teaching and coaching and that sort of thing. So, give us a story of growing up and how you ended up here.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. It's a good opportunity. So I played in Portugal
Hmm.
since I was, in Europe, especially in Portugal, soccer is the only sport and soccer only. So if you don't play soccer, you're kind of weird. That's the way they see you a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so I was always happy that I had a great support from my family. So I always play at a very good level. By the time I was 16, I have played already in two different professional academies of youth and stuff. So I was very blessed. By the time that I was 16, I signed a contract, like a academy contract, and I'll start training with professionals.
Hmm.
Not all the time, but I was in. It's a team called Estoril, which now is in the first division. They're always between first and second division Portugal, but now they are in the first division, and I start training with them sometimes. It was a great experience, but honestly, I recognized right away that I was not good enough. I was good enough to be second, third, fourth string, but I couldn't make a living out of it. So at that time, one of my old coaches from the youth academy, he opened this company who sends players abroad, and he mentioned about the U.S. college system and scholarships and while you study, and he showed us, trying to sell. He showed us the beautiful stadiums there's in U.S. with college and thousands, hundreds of people on the stands and all that stuff. So I did some research, and I ended up coming to Kentucky first. I went to a small school in Barville, Kentucky called Union College. At that time, we were an NIA school, so at that time we were number five in the nation. Extremely competitive program. I mean, we had a squad around 29, maybe. I'm not completely sure. I can't remember top of my head, but I would assume 29, 30. And we had like five Americans. So the
Yeah.
rest was all international: Portuguese, Italian, French, Jamaica. You name it. We had it all. Extremely competitive. And then I stayed there for 3 years because I was doing college already in Portugal. So I was a transfer when I came here. And then I just ended up staying here. I ended up staying here. Before I moved to Emory, I was actually at King University, which is another Division two school, but I was on the men's side.
Hmm.
And then I made a transition to Emory in Virginia, which is right 20 minutes down the road from King, to the women's side. And I got a working visa, which was painful, but I got it. So all good now.
Cool.
So
Um,
when you were looking at all the great things of America from Portugal, were you expecting what you expected when you arrived in Kentucky?
So when I came to US, my first thoughts was I'm going to be professional.
Right.
That's what I thought right away. I'm going to play MLS. I remember my father talked to me about that because again, I was blessed to play such a good level. I mean, I play with guys, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I say this in an arrogant way because it was a privilege. I mean, I play against guys who Ruben Diaz from Manchester City, Gonçalo Guedes who's at Benfica now, Renato Sanchez who's at PSG now he's leaving, I guess. But I play against all those type of guys. I mean, it was a blessing. It was awesome. And then when I was about to come to US, I'm going to be professional. But when I came here, I joined NIA, which I didn't know much about the leagues at that time, and I only knew NCAA and NIA, but I thought NCAA was the top. And when I came to NIA, and I knew there was not a lot of rules or black and white rules, right? It was a different breed. I mean, every single team had more than half of the squad of internationals with a background similar or even better than mine. So was incredible. But yeah, answer your question. I was disappointed in a way that was too good than what I thought it would be, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so was a good type of disappointment, if that makes sense. I was the only thing I was bad disappointing was when they sell coming to US, they sell about all these beautiful stadiums with thousands of people on the stands and all the facilities, all the gear, all the equipment. But there are thousands of schools in the United States, and some of
Right.
them don't have the same facilities and same conditions as other ones. In my school in Kentucky, we had a fantastic program in terms of competition, in terms of athleticism, in terms of individual talent. But in terms of gear, equipment, we were not the best ones, if that makes sense. So it was kind of disappointing on that standpoint.
That's why I was asking, because you ended up in Kentucky, and most, like, when I think of Portugal, I think of like Lisbon, like some
That's where I
beautiful.
live.
Right, but I could have also ended up in some small Kentucky version in Portugal and be like, oh, this is not what I expected at all. A lot of the international kids that I've worked with or coached, one kid came over from Avery and in Danville, Virginia. It's pretty close out there where you are, and he was like, yeah, I was expecting, New York City and Los
Mhm.
Angeles, and I ended up in Danville, Virginia. There's nothing wrong with Danville. It's just it's such a different area, and so it's interesting you talk about that. It's like, yeah, Emory and Henry and Christopher Newport, and we are much different spots than Ohio State
Mhm.
or here in Virginia Tech or UVA, and some of these big dogs that you go to their facilities and you're like, oh, this is a little different, So it's I'm always curious when an international guy comes over, it's his first time in the States, and he ends up not in New York City or LA or a big time city, and just what that shock is like.
No, but I mean, and I agree with you because actually, so when I got into this company that, like we do, right, recruiting internationals, the same agencies,
Mm-hmm.
when I got into that company, I had cousins in New York, like third-degree cousins, and I asked them, hey, can I come over so I can take a look at US? And even though I was not talking to any school yet, because it was a 1 year process. So I was like, let me just see if I like US. And they're from New York. So I
Right.
went to New York, I watched Manhattan, I was in Long Island next to the beach. And then I ended up in a town with 50 people in Kentucky, middle of nowhere. I mean, it
Right.
was different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about like the difference in the youth system. Like here it's kind of pay to play, and over there, you get into an academy and that sort of thing. And, just compare and contrast, the systems.
Well, that's a discussion of a lifetime, isn't it? I know in US that's
Yeah.
a big thing. So yeah, yeah. I mean, back home again, I cannot talk by entire Europe because I'm only from Portugal. But
Right.
I have friends from different countries, and from my understanding, is all the same. But here is pay to play, where in Portugal there's no pay to play at all. You pay when you are a little kid because you are in those youth academies and stuff. But once you reach around 10, you stop paying at all.
Mhm.
Actually, it's when they start paying you. Not necessarily when you're 10, but like I said, when I was 16, I had a contract and I was making money already. Not a lot, but I was covering costs. That was another reason why I didn't go NCAA as well.
And they had an
But and the system is different. First of all, you go here with all respect to all youth coaches, but you go to some coaches, for example, and depends on location as well. I mean, I go to Barberville, Kentucky. It's hard to find soccer at all there. There's
Right.
really almost no opportunities, and the ones that there are, I mean, the coaching is extremely poor. I mean, some of them are parents who, with all respect, are just trying to help kids, just trying to get them some exercise, some activity. But I mean, in Portugal, the coaches are good, in youth system. I mean, there's a reason why our team is so good and why our soccer is so development in our national team is incredible. I mean, the coaches are amazing. I coached some teams back in Portugal, a youth, and it's funny because I used to coach a club around here, and the parents would ask me, what's the difference between our age, under 14, and under 14 that you coach back home? And I was like, the difference was here in US when I coach a game, the parents are like, kick the ball forward, run, score. But in Portugal, at the end of the game, the parents would come to me and say, hey, why the hell did you change the formation?
Mhm.
Or why you didn't change it? Why did you leave two center backs? Why you didn't add an extra third man? Like it's much more tactical because people know the game. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, it seems like it's starting to get that way a little bit. I mean, I think our national team is, at least talent wise, the best it's ever been, across the board in terms of overall talent. And I think across the country, it is a growing sport. It always has been. But, to your point you made earlier in Portugal, I mean, everybody plays soccer. And here they play. I mean, I grew up playing baseball and I signed up for basketball and I signed up for football. And, I just played a little bit of everything growing up. And, you know, up until, geez, I think I was 13, 14 years old before it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't someone like my father coaching my soccer team. And so, and I actually still have the book sitting on my desk right here, but over my head of like Soccer for Dummies that I just took from my dad from the late '80s. I just thought it was I was like, what a funny book. I don't think I've
Hey,
cracked.
once in a while, we all need it.
Hey,
Once
it
in a
might
while.
there might be something in there. It's but it's interesting to hear the differences. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, it's such a big monster here, and how much of the pay to play versus non-paying to play is driven through having, like you were with Porto, I believe. Is that correct? I mean, you guys are making somewhat of a bit of money through your top team. Like there's a lot of coin. You sell one of your players, you can pay all your salaries for a couple of years there. So, what is the difference there? Because there isn't a pro team in town here to funnel the money down. And so, where else would the money come from is basically the question across the country here. So, like what is that like? I mean, it's
So the biggest thing for me is, and that's what I've always said to parents, friends, the coaches is, you here pay to play, but you have fantastic facilities. Not necessarily facilities, but you have all the gear. You have shoes. I've seen kids with three different travel pants, and they have
right,
multiple stuff. And kind of what you're asking, I mean, the country helps a lot the clubs in terms of funding. Like you said, the top dogs, the top teams feed themselves from sales that they made and sponsors and all that stuff, and
right,
and that it's like a channel for all the youth sport of that club. But it's a challenge because except top teams, like I was in my youth academy was not a top team, but was from a professional club.
right,
But still, our conditions were okay. But if you go to Benfica Sporting Porto, they all have great, all the gear, all the facilities. They go to the games by bus, for example. But while you are in the small clubs, you don't have the same quality.
right,
Like, okay, you don't pay to play, sure, but you don't get travel pants. You might get one travel pants that was worn by the professional players like 5 years ago. So it's little, it's listen, I even tell you a funny story. When I was in Studio, there was a guy in a professional team called Seba. Seba was a guy, I don't even know he's playing anymore. I don't even know his nationality, maybe Brazilian, I'm not sure. This guy was a beast. Was a well built guy. His quads were massive. So when the professional team, turn in all their gear and send it to us, the shorts had the numbers, but nobody could use his number because his quads were so big that the shorts were all stretched out. So a guy, wear these shorts and it looked like a skirt, literally. So, I
Mhm.
think that kind of answers your question in a way that, sure, here you pay to play and you might not get the best talent because you're going to miss talent for sure. Some
Sure,
kids just cannot afford it.
sure,
And while in Portugal, you get the best talent, but not necessarily the best facility. I mean, you go to fields. I mean, honestly, since I was in US, I don't think I've ever seen a bad turf field, if that makes sense. Even in club, like if we're talking about a well-established club, right?
right,
A well-established club, I don't think I've seen a really, really rough turf, like with the turf coming apart or something. While
right,
in Portugal, oh yeah, 100%. My club, my youth academy used to be one of them until they changed the turf. So it's this answer your question. I think comes from sales. The clubs need to help their youth, but the smaller clubs
yeah,
they don't have conditions. And also the biggest challenge is, it goes by the region. So for
one-
example, Sturil in my region was one of the top teams. If I play in one of those little clubs and if I'm good enough, they are going to take me away right away. They're
yeah,
going to find me, scout me, and say, talk to my parents, say you're coming with us. So the small teams, it's the chance of survival is not very high.
yeah,
That's why I feel UEFA a while ago create those. I think it's like youth academy incentives. I don't know the name in English, but basically, when they sell the player, they go by it's by the rights of formation, right? The rights of academy. So
right,
if you spend 10 years in the youth academy of this club, you need to pay a percentage of that sale to that club.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a way to help with, balancing numbers and everything.
Yeah. I could be wrong. There was a kid who was based out of, I think it was out of Richmond, and he signed a big deal in Europe and multi-million-dollar deal. And he left as a kid. And the club that he came from, they didn't see a dime. I
Hmm.
guess U.S. Soccer takes that money. I guess that all these kids are U.S. Soccer kids, not necessarily
Hmm.
the local club that they play for. So the local club didn't see a dime, and they lost their best player for $1 million contract or however much the kid made. And I definitely found that to be a little odd. I mean, how many clubs over there are just they can sell a guy and they won't even try to sign him. They know that like, oh, I'd rather sell this kid for tens, 20, 30 millions of dollars and I'll be able to pay for 10 guys and my whole staff or get a new training facility like you talked about. I mean, you get a super special kid, that's where you can now change your program, even though that kid will never finish his career with you, of course, unless he kind of comes back at the very end.
And it's so hard because it's hard to balance both things. It's
Mm,
hard for you to want to have an extremely competitive squad and having, the youth and young players. But at the same time, I mean, a Portuguese team cannot deny an offer of $40 million or 40
right.
million euros for a
How
player.
can you do that?
It's a lot of money for Portugal.
Right.
You can't say no.
I will
So
sell every one of my players for that amount right
yeah,
now.
I
I know
mean,
it's college,
there's
it's not
nothing you can
legal.
do.
But if
There's nothing
one
to
guy,
do.
if you want one of my guys and you're going to give me that money, I'll break the rules. I'll see you later.
We'll fly everywhere. No
Right.
more bus.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it's a big challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely a big challenge. But another thing that I was shocked when I found out in US was I started learning when I came to US as a student because my cousin, one of them, played in the club and they explained me a little bit. And I actually did a summer internship when I was on my undergrad in East Team. And I learned a little bit and I was shocked how in US you guys, sorry, I'm going to say you guys because you guys are Americans.
Mm.
You guys have like guest players and
Yep.
shocking to me. It's completely unrealistic. It's completely different than
Well, you
Portugal.
started in your town. You played for your town's team.
Hmm.
Like here in the States, once you start to get to a certain level, I mean, especially up in like Northern Virginia, super saturated areas where there's lots of teams, you will see kids. Well, I'm going to go to the team 40 minutes away or up there. That could be much longer, just because it's the better team or there's coaches there or whatever. And you'll see people jumping ship immediately. There's no like, hey, everybody from Fairfax plays for Fairfax, or everybody from here, Williamsburg or Newport News or Emory stays in town and plays. No, I mean, if you have a superstar kid from there, he's leaving.
Oh,
He's going to go to the nearest team. It could be an hour, hour and a half drive, whatever, and he's going to go play for that team in a heartbeat.
and it comes, with the soccer opportunities in the area as well.
Right.
Sometimes the towns don't have any opportunities. I mean, where I'm at, we have Johnson City, which is almost 1 hour away.
Mm-hmm.
There's where I was coaching club, and the club is good. But I mean, you have players there who could go somewhere else, and they are just guest players in some ECNL teams, for example. And it's tough because again, not everything. I, I thought about this before. I just don't know what the solution would be in the way that the country's so big.
Yeah.
It's so big that it's hard to bring soccer to everyone in a fair amount
Too
of
many
time, fair
options to
amount of
move.
price, and
Right.
it's really. I don't know what the solution would be. Honestly,
No, I'm
that's
glad
when I talk to my friends in
that.
Europe. They ask, how is US so big, and the soccer is not even half of what it could be. And I was like, I think you answer your own question.
Right.
The fact that they are so big is what make it more difficult.
Yeah.
But also, let me add what you said about the growth of soccer before. I agree with you. I think it's growing a lot. I think there's better coaches, there are better players as well, more players.
Sure.
But I agree with you. I just feel part of me thinks that it will never go extremely far because of the culture, if that makes sense. There
Yeah.
are so many of the sports. Like I told you, I mean, in Portugal, it's soccer and soccer. If I tell my father, hey, I'm quitting soccer to go play volleyball, he's going to say, listen, you have no idea what you're talking about. You just stay in your team, you know? And here there's a lot of other sports. It's, I think that cultural side of it, I don't think it helps neither.
Yeah, I agree. And I always think of, I mean, look at who are the best athletes that play soccer right now? I mean, they're some incredible athletes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think soccer's filled with athletes across the world, but here in this country, our absolute best athletes, while we do have some great athletes playing soccer, I mean, they're playing basketball, playing football. I mean, they're playing different sports. And I always giggle. People ask you, like, what if like LeBron James was a soccer player? I mean, Yeah, like, yeah, who's going to stop that guy if he had started kicking a ball at? To your point, I mean, these kids are playing at 4 or 5 years old. If he started now, he'd never even make any type of pro environment. Of course, it's too late. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the culture is definitely going to hold us back. And you talked about how you could be a kid at 12, 13 years old and get signed and shipped off. And I mean, parents don't do that here. I mean, you'll hear of some of them will do that a little bit, but for the most part, it's parents like, no, my kid's going to stay here until they're 18 and then they can leave. That type of deal. Very rarely do you see them shipping their kid off. And the best kids, they're usually in some sort of professional environment by what age would you say? 14 at the latest? I mean, they need to be in a professional training type environment. And, those aren't everywhere across our country. So parents are going to have to get rid of their kid at a much earlier age. And they just don't want to do that. I got kids now. I can't imagine them 14 years old saying, see you, dad, I'm going to go do some homeschool high school thing, go live in Philadelphia or something. I couldn't imagine doing that.
Yep, I agree.
Were you at Porto when Mourinho was there?
No, I was too young.
Did you ever meet that guy?
I've seen him, but I never had the privilege.
I tell you what, man. You say what you want about him, man. He gets after it. I like it.
If you watch Netflix, there's a show called, I think it's Playbook, or the Coach's Playbook, something like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's extremely interesting. It's a show where it has, I think, 8 episodes. I think, and it's like each episode is a different coach from multiple sports. So the
Okay.
first episode is Doc Rivers from Boston Celtics, and then one of them is Mourinho, and he talks
so it's
about
all
Pirlo
coaches.
and Chelsea and stuff, and Inter as well. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So it's all coaches on there.
All coaches. Yeah.
Oh, that's
They
fantastic.
talk about their experience, and they,
Yeah.
they always like within the episode they mark by chapters, like
Yeah.
some type of lesson for you to learn as a coach. And it was cool. Like, for example, I remember the part that marked me the most. Honestly, it's not even soccer, but when Doc Rivers said every single meeting every year, especially in every single team that he has, he always starts by saying, "Hello, my name is Doc Rivers. I'm your head coach, but before a head coach, I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I have a lot of things I'm good at. I have a lot of things I'm terrible at, but I'll make mistakes." And
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny how we see these guys on TV making millions of dollars a year, and they are just human, just like us, and
Yeah.
all that type of stuff.
Well, if you think about it, once you cross onto a field, obviously soccer is different than basketball, than different than football. But on the sideline or in the locker room or on the bus or just in your office, it is the exact same game. I mean, we're all just dealing with young men in our field, or these guys are professional athletes, and you can't tell me that the professional athletes in the office of Doc Rivers are any different than the professional athletes in the office of Mourinho. I'm sure they're dealing with the same challenges, and so the X's and O's may be different, but really we're all dealing with the same types of people, same types of kids, and so there's so much crossover, so much to learn from other sports, and all the top coaches across all sports, they have so much that you can give you. I mean, like Tony Dungy's books were such a hit for everybody that coached any sport. I mean, you just can learn so much from all the crossover.
I can even tell another story. I don't know, Scott, if you're on the time, if you have more questions, but
No, keep going. Yep.
My first practice in a professional academy, I remember like it was yesterday. Portugal is a very tiny country, extremely tiny. We have 2 islands, which is called Madeira and the Açores, which is like you need to go by plane or by boat, but normally people go by plane. And we were in the national league of under 19, I believe. I can't remember top of my under 19, and we were going to play to the islands against a professional team, a professional academy team, which is called Nacional, which is in the second league right now. But that was a game that us as kids we were waiting the entire year long because we were going to fly. Because in Portugal we didn't fly anywhere. We always go by normally vans, honestly, and we wouldn't fly anywhere. So that game was a game that we had marked in our calendar saying, "This is awesome. We are going to fly. We're going to be hotel." And we were kids playing the professional academy, but still we are not professionals yet. So we are going to look like professionals. So I remember we were going to leave on a Friday to fly, train there, and on Saturday we would play. And on Thursday night, my coach, in the middle of practice, my coach pulled me off practice and said, "Hey, Filipe, I just want to let you know, I want to talk to you first. You're not traveling with us tomorrow." And as you can imagine, I was 16 years old. I was like, what the hell? I've been waiting for this game for months now, since August, since preseason start. And then I remember like it was yesterday. He turned to me and he said, And I was like, why? And he was like, well, you're not traveling with us because you belong to them now. The expression to them in the club means you go downstairs because we had the youth academy facility, and right downstairs was a professional stadium. So it was like, you belong to them now. And you literally point towards the stadium. And I was like, okay, that's a change now.
Yeah.
So on Friday, I had to leave classes because I had to train with the professionals at 3 p.m. So my father took me, drove me on the car. Can you imagine like all those guys arriving with freaking Porsche, some Ferraris and stuff, and I was in my dad's car, Opel Corsa, I think, and just driving down and see that. And I remember I just arrived, and I was so shy because I mean those were the guys who I see on TV, you know. And it's funny how you're saying about all they are so normal. I mean, I'll hear these guys talking about cars, about girls, about parties, you know, in the locker room, on Facebook, social media. So I thought after 2 or 3 sessions, I was like, these guys are exactly like me. I
Right.
mean, they have the same ideas, they have same thoughts, they make the same mistakes. You know, I just always was curious. You know, I remember when we started training, we were waiting on the line. I remember guys saying, "Well, my agent could talk to this agent to see if I could get out of here." You know, like it was just funny to hear them talk about
Yeah.
stuff that you don't hear on TV. You know, and you can see how normal they are compared to us. We just sometimes we put them such a high pedestal, and they are exactly like us. And for me, the biggest difference was everything they did mostly had a purpose, and everything they did was almost perfect, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I believe.
Like, you know how normally, us, we do technical work where it's almost like 5 yard pass with turning and all that stuff. Well, the girls, the guys miss maybe 4 5 out of 10, sometimes even more,
Right.
and these guys miss one maybe.
Right.
It's much more consistent. It's incredible. It's a good
Yeah,
level.
I was talking to a buddy, Scott knows him too. He played professionally in Germany for a few years. He actually had a long career over there. He grew up in our systems here, played high school soccer and the whole 9 yards there. But when he went over to Germany, we were asking him, "What are the training sessions like?" He goes, "Well, a lot of the drills are very similar to the drills that we even do in America. It's not like I can't look up a really good drill from Germany. He said, but the difference is we'll do it for an hour at world class speed, and you're not allowed to make a single mistake. And so all these professional guys are just dialed into this simple drill. Like, I mean, I'm talking box passing, something where it's just super simple, and you will have to be perfect for the entire time. And it's such a hard concept to really explain to the college athlete. I mean, to ask them to be perfect like that. I mean, there's probably not even the top Division 1 teams in the country. I'm sure that their drills, their balls are scooting off and going up against the fence, or they have to keep extra balls near the area just so that they can jump back in and not lose too much precious time during their training sessions. I mean, it really was eye opening to hear how the drills are similar, but man, it is crisp, it's perfect, and it's demanding at that high of a level.
We
It's
have this idea, which I think mainly came from Guardiola, honestly. We have this idea where for us to be great coaches, we need to have this different type of sessions where they
mhm,
do flips while passing the ball, and like
mhm,
this random sessions. And the more I study, the more I read, the more I do all of this, I was like, the biggest difference for me between an okay coach and a great coach is, first of all, the session goes in according of the topic that you want to coach, and the communication. That's key. That's key. 100%.
yeah,
Sometimes not even realize that. How do we communicate with the girls and the guys? How do we explain the message? I think that's what makes a great coach.
yeah,
Because I was doing one of my licenses recently, and I went to my license, and I was like, hell, it's a room with 30 other coaches. We all talk about the same thing.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, we all know a lot about soccer, but the biggest difference is who can explain the message the best.
yeah,
And it was funny because when we run our sessions for the license, you could see who was more comfortable with the explanation of the drill, the getting the main topics, the retention of the information from the players compared to others. And I think
mhm,
that's what makes a great
yeah.
coach, honestly. Yeah.
I was at a session once. I think it was Tony DeChico. I think he passed away recently. He was a women's goalkeeper, or he was a coach I want to say his specialty was goalkeeping, but I want to say he was on the head coach for the women as well. Maybe won World Cup or Olympics or something like that. But he said something super profound to me. I'm sitting there, we got our pen and paper, we're about to just copy down this drill. There's cones everywhere. We're excited to see this professional coach do a drill. I was a young coach at the time. And he goes, all right, I got the best secret for you. If you want to be a good coach, you got to get good players. But if you want to be a great coach, you got to get great players. I was like, oh yeah, that's let me just write that down and leave here. But I mean, that's kind of a segue here. I mean, that is our job. I mean, how much easier is it for you to win at Emory and Henry if you've got 10 players that are better than 10 players you currently have? Same with me. I mean, I tell my guys all the time, my job is to recruit over you. I mean, I don't tell my guys, hey, I'm going to go get someone that I don't think is as good as you. It's just going to be your backup for 4 years. Like, no, I'm trying to recruit over you. That will take my program to the next level. And of course, your job is to make me regret doing all this recruiting. And then when I do bring in a kid, you don't let them pass you. I mean, that's your job. And so talking about recruiting specifically, you are at a very interesting place. You're at a D2 school, which there aren't a lot of D2s in Virginia, let alone, I think we said in the beginning, you're the only D2 girls team in Virginia. But our two schools couldn't be further, apart from each other, and even all the Division Ones. And it's just, you're a great school. I think your average is like a 3.6 GPA, so you're getting really good kids too. But I don't think our recruiting could be any different. It really is bizarre. And so, why don't you speak on that? Compare yourself to look at me. Good schools are in the state of Virginia, and yet you have to do it so different than all of us. And so, what would you say is your biggest obstacle, or what would you say are your biggest differences, biggest
Yeah,
challenges
I mean,
across?
picking for what you said, I think the main topic comes with what you said, which is when you said compare yourself. I think that's what we all can do.
Mhm.
It's compare ourselves to other. I think especially when you are a young coach, I'm a young coach, you have this tendency of try to compare yourselves with others, and that will never happen because, like you said, location is different, the profile of the student might be different. There's a lot more restrictions. Maybe, for example, our area around here, for example, for us to get a very good level of soccer, we probably need to drive between 1.5 to 2 hours.
Right.
While if you are in Blacksburg, if you are from Virginia Tech, I mean, you probably have quality soccer right on the road.
Yeah.
So it's like the biggest obstacle that we had was we have two obstacles. One of them it's fixable. The other one it doesn't depend on us. So the fixable one is the brand. We were Division 3. We were not a great Division 3 program at that time. So our brand is not big enough. So when people think about Emory and Henry, people think right away of Emory, Georgia, which is a very good Division 3 school. Um, so
Yeah.
our brand is not good enough. So that's something that we tried to fix last year. But I think it's a continuous work that you need to keep doing, which is go to camps, expose yourself like we're doing right now. Podcasts, recruitment events, showcases, tournaments, ID camps. We try to attend all of it. Sometimes even events that we know we are not might be able to attend, but if you can get rosters, if you can get ourselves, sometimes we do video of the event. We try to register for those events as well, just so kids can see our brand there. And I think that's important. We did a good job with that. We're having much more people interested from not just from Virginia, but from outside Virginia, including internationals. I need to praise myself and my assistant. She left, and she was Brazilian. I need to praise ourselves a little bit on that one. Part of the reason why we have more international interest is because we both were internationals.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, like biggest sell point for us is you can come play for me, be special, and you'll be training under a international coach who knows your struggles, know how bad it is to be far away from family, knows how to work out your visa, what you need to do to stay in US, while you can play for another school while the coach is American with all respect, but don't know all the steps that you need to take towards that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a big selling point for internationals for us. The other obstacle that is not fixable is the location. It's something that you can't control, which is, but we all know how kids are. Some of them just don't want to be engaged. Some of them, no matter what you can do 25 parties in a week on campus for the kids. They don't care. They are not going to be happy. So I think that comes also with the recruitment profile of the type of, in my case, the type of girl you're trying to bring over and try to understand what they are looking for. And I think it's important when we bring them on a visit where, listen, are you looking for a place where you're going to be parties 24/7 and you have a massive city where you can go out? This won't be the place for you. you
Mhm.
know. And I think being transparent, I think that helps us, trying to helps our retention rate as well,
Yep.
because kids realize right away, okay, he's being honest. This might be the right fit for me because I just don't like the place, which is fine. But location is a big thing. I don't know. I've never been at your campus. I don't know how your location looks like.
Sure.
But for us, I mean, it's a challenge.
Yeah, CNU's. I mean, Newport News is a city, and we're not far from a few great things that are off campus. Hampton's right next door, Williamsburg's right next door, Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic Ocean. It's all pretty close. So there is more to do here than just be on campus, of course. So that definitely is a driving factor, and why especially Virginia kids would be interested in Christopher Newport. You being a Division II school, though, that gives you scholarship opportunities. Are you guys a fully funded D2? You
No.
can offer. So
Mm.
what is fully funded, and what can you guys offer?
So like a fully funded Division 2 is 9.9. 9.9 scholarships. So right now we are about one third of that. So it's been a challenge. It's something that we need to manage the right way. The way we try to do things, or the way we have been working on, the way our line of thought is any single Virginia kid, if Virginia Tech, Radford, Virginia University is not interested, or JMU, it should come to us first before going to any Division 3 school. That's how we are trying to look at it, because
Okay.
we can offer money.
Yeah.
So if there's a kid who says, "Well, I'm interested between your school, Bridgewater or whatever," we should be able to close the deal. Just at least if it's just from a standpoint of financial, and also the fact that we're playing a very competitive. I mean, our conference. I don't know if you're aware. I mean, South Atlantic Conference, extremely competitive Division 2 conference where at least for the women's side, inclusive on the men's side. I mean, it's a lot of top teams in the country. I mean, Carson Newman, Catawba, and Ryan. We're talking about, I mean, massive stadiums, a lot of fans. I mean, competition is great. So that's the way we try to see it. I think the way we try to approach it is top Virginia kids, because there's a lot of good Virginia athletes, 100%, especially on your area, Northern Virginia. But we also need to combine with some out of state or even international kids.
Yeah.
I don't think not necessarily internationals, but out of state, 100%. I think that
So
helps, even to bring
most,
diversity.
it seems like a lot of Division II is international based. Is that, to be honest with you, I don't really know much because there's just not a lot that I compete against. And I obviously we don't play against Division II, but I don't really know a ton of Division II coaches. There's not a lot nearby. And so, but just from outside looking in, it looks like it's pretty heavy international. You look at the All American awards; it's almost everybody is not American. And is that pretty sound across the country? That the top teams are usually pretty
So
heavy.
it's funny because I was talking to Scott, even when you were not here.
Mhm.
So my opinion, and after I've been on the women's side, I've been on the men's and women's side. So on the women's side, I don't necessarily think you need international to be successful. And
Okay.
the best example that I can give is you have Catawba, who's my opinion was probably the best team in our conference, national rank. By the time we faced them, they were number 9 in the nation. 2 years ago, made it to the semifinal, quarterfinal of the national tournament. So very good side. Like over 90% of the team was from North Carolina,
Oh, okay.
all around that area. And actually, I was shocked. I even talked to Coach Etienne. I said, I don't know how you do it, but that's amazing. How you
Yeah.
have a team all local. All made in North Carolina, and you're from North Carolina, the school, and you get all those kids. And we're
Yeah.
talking about kids. I mean, the other girl, we'll never forget her name, Katie Back, incredible center back, who, for what he told me, she's going to play professional Australia. So a lot of good kids overall. But now on the men's side, you need internationals. You need internationals on the men's side, because the top on the women's side, women's, they don't necessarily care about the level of the soccer, if that makes sense. Like, for what I mean by this is, if there's a kid who can go to Virginia Tech and play, but their major, it's not great over there, but she can come here and make six figures after she graduates, there's a big chance she might end up coming here. It's much more professional oriented, academic oriented.
Hmm.
But the men's side, they care a lot about the soccer part of it, a lot of it.
Right.
And I would be surprised if you lost kids like that. Kids who just want to go to maybe Division 1. I mean, a lot of kids end up going Division 1, even though they might not play, but they just want to have that status. But the point is, all the good American kids, they will end up going to Division 1 on the men's side. While on Division 2, you can get internationals who can come here and they can influence right away.
Right.
I mean, in our conference, I mean, I remember I watched some of the men's game, and most of them or all of them, actually, I changed what I said. all the teams who didn't have as many as internationals, they were the least succeeding teams. So you need to have internationals 100%. They changed the game.
Yeah, that seems like that's the case for Division Two, and even in Division One, you're seeing a lot more internationals. They were always playing here. Good players like yourself that may have just missed out on some opportunity at home. Thought, man, I'll just come to the United States, get an awesome degree, and maybe be able to climb the ladder there and make it in the pros there. And so it's always been around. Even when I was a player in the late '90s, it was happening. And so, but it definitely seems like now more than ever, especially Division Two, and then more and more in Division Three than normal. The international thing, and of course, COVID exacerbated that with Division One not being allowed to recruit for an entire year. I mean, a lot of those guys were like, "All right, well, I'm just gonna use a few of my bucks to go get some international kids," and I couldn't go recruiting anyways. I can't see the American kids play live, so it was such a tough thing. So you've seen the lasting effects from that. So what do you
feel? Sorry, I also feel that part of the reason why some Division Ones are bringing more international as well is because some Division Ones now, because of diversity and stuff, they are offering international scholarships as well.
Yep.
From the institution, so that makes it way cheap. I know a few schools around here, Division One, who they offer international scholarship, and they can even stack with athletic, so they can bring many good international kids.
Yeah. You'll see that, men's side Division One is 9.9. And I think if you added up all the scholarships, though, at some of these places, I mean, they could be in the 20s if you add them all up, between academic or, any type of program that the school has. And so you'll see some of these teams they'll aim for a kid that fits a certain criteria, and, oh, good, I can get this kid for free and it doesn't cost me a dime. Like that kid, of course, is going to present a lot more value to that program than maybe a kid that might value a little bit more, but it's going to cost them a full boat. So they're not going to take that kid. They're going to get the free kid and then go put their resources elsewhere. So I'm assuming you run into that issue from time to time. I mean, how much success do you have with in-state kids, with Virginia kids?
I mean, with Virginia kids, we have a lot of success.
Right.
And part of the reason is because what I told you guys about the way we sell the program. It's a no-brainer. I mean, you can come from the main point is you can come to a school who was a Division III school who was not that great. You can come now to Division II, one of the best conferences in the country, playing great soccer, beautiful live broadcasting systems and all that stuff, and you can make history here. It's a big and be part of the only Division II school in the state of Virginia. It's a big selling point. But even then, we see a lot of success on out-of-state kids. The only thing we have been missing a little bit is international kids because of financial.
Yeah,
financial has been the biggest issue. I just feel the investment in international kid right now on the women's side, it's too high for the outcome that you can get out of it.
Right.
I don't know. Do you have internationals in your team?
Not kids that are from. I mean, I've got kids that are international based, but I recruited them from Virginia somewhere. They've been living here for the last few years. It's been a while since we had just a kid. He was an English guy, but he transferred to us from a school in state, so we didn't even recruit him out of England.
But I'm just saying because when you bring international, there's always a period of adaptation, isn't it? I mean, there are some kids who need at least 2 years to get used to the rhythm because the soccer is so different, and I'm like, sometimes you're going to invest a big chunk of money in a kid that might take 2 years to explode, maybe. While you can maybe split that money and get two good American kids who are already used to the system. For example, international kid who comes here doesn't understand why do we travel 5 hours to play. While an American kid, that's what she has been doing her entire life.
Right.
Even worse, playing CNL and all that stuff. So I think that's why women's always turning more to Americans instead of international. And also, soccer is extremely popular here in women's compared to in Europe. It's popular, but in Portugal it's not popular. And the conditions are different.
2 or 3 countries in the world too for soccer from the women's side.
Yeah.
So the trickle down from that, kids that can't make it in the pros are still really good college level players. So it's definitely a different animal for recruiting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered everything that I had written down to talk about. Is there anything else you guys need to add? It's fantastic.
I wanted to ask, how has the men's team adjusted? Because we actually had a kid transfer to us a few years ago from Emory and Henry. I don't know if it was exact time that they went from 3 to 2, or maybe it was right after that.
Mhm.
How has that transition gone for the men's team, and what are the challenges that are in place, conference wise or travel wise, that you talk about? I mean, like I said, there's not a lot to play against just in the state of Virginia alone, and so I just wondering what are your non-recruiting type obstacles you guys have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, the transition of the men's has been difficult. Like I
Mm,
said, the main reason financial. If you
yeah,
cannot bring internationals, it's a challenge. It's
sure.
definitely a challenge. I mean, you can search their record. They didn't have a good season, but I also heard that part of the journey is always the first step. So it's not easy, and I think that's our frustration as coaches. Is I never heard of a coach who likes to lose, right? It takes some time to adjust. Even the coach who's here right now, he was a coach at when Emory was Division 3, so coaching Division 3 to coach Division 2, I think it requires a different approach from the coach. I think I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as a Division 3 coach, sometimes you can kind of wait a little bit more, like because will talk to you sometimes. But as Division 2, I mean, we're all looking at the same people. If that makes sense, if you stop talking to a kid for one day, she's already committed somewhere else.
Oh wow.
It's whoever is offering more money. You know, especially those best players. It's it's whoever is offering the more money. It's a challenge.
Yeah,
Um,
D3 timelines are interesting. I mean, there's no money involved.
mhm.
So, my approach, all coaches have different approaches, but I just had a kid here the other day, and I always ask timeline because I would like to know when they would like to be committed and what they're thinking, and then we kind of go from there. And I've always said the same thing. That's great. I love your timeline. That sounds fine. I get it. You want to wait another tournament or two, uh, but I always tell the kids the same thing. I'm going to recruit or move forward assuming you're not coming to me. Because if I don't get you, I'm going to want another kid that I also like just as much. And so if I do find that kid and that kid's ready to come right now, then I might give you a call and say, hey, I need to know. So
Mhm.
that'll be the only time I'll be kind of pushy with the timeline. You'll get different answers across the board there, but Division 3 in general, yeah, you would imagine that if we're recruiting the top kids, these tweeners, these kids that are possibly going Division 1, may go Division 3, they're getting looks from both, and maybe there's a few bucks thrown to them in the Division 1 world where now I have to compete against someone that is getting a little bit of money. I'm not recruiting against some full ride kid, obviously, but a kid that might be getting a few bucks, yeah, they want to know. They want to know if they're going to get that money from the Division 1 school or Division 2 school. And so, there's a little bit of a delay there, but it's you talk about culture earlier. There's a lot of, good soccer players that are looking for specific things. And so, here we're actually at a little bit of a luxury here at CNU where a lot of times I get to land those kids early.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
but you're right. In general, you're right. Division 3, we're a little more patient. These kids are exhausting other options a lot of times in the beginning and seeing if the Division 1 or Division 2 world's there to throw them some money so that they can cut their costs down. Which I totally understand, totally respect. It's their money, it's their time. So I totally understand that.
it's difficult because especially as Division 2, we know we have money, so we need to run after the kids. If that makes sense.
Okay.
While for you guys, I mean, that about scholarship, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
It's a stack of money that the school offers from academic money. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think you cannot be flexible about it. Probably they can apply for different types of other scholarships, but not athletic coming from you.
Right.
While us, I mean, if a kid says, "Well, I'm getting 3 grand from this place," well, I can maybe go back to my budget and see if there's any way that I can raise that above those 3,000 to cut the costs.
Sure.
So it's a little bit more challenging, more frustrating as well, because I also feel that nowadays, and you probably felt that even at Division 3 level, Division 1 and it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think um, I don't think necessarily there's a lot of ethical coaches down there. Not
Mm,
down there, sorry, around here. I don't think. I think the more coaches feel pressure to win and stuff, I think ethics is being lost a little bit. So what that means is, I've seen kids being recruited who you can clearly see they are not going to play, but the coaches keep feeding them. I don't want to say lies, but sure.
mm,
But within 1 year, you'll see that kid in the transfer portal right away,
sure.
and that sucks because I don't want to be that guy, and I bet you don't want to be that guy either. But sometimes you feel like saying, "I told you so," and it's kind of frustrating because it changes the way the kids look. The way the kids talk to coaches, the way the kids are recruited as well.
We talked about that topic quite a bit on this podcast where I think the biggest obstacle is they need to hear it from someone that they trust that's in the know. And I mean, to hear it from me or from you, it's like, well, I had a kid tell me this straight to my face. I asked him, like, well, what are you going to do? And, he mentioned a couple schools. And I'm like, well, do you even know if you're going to play there? And he just kind of like totally blew it off and was like, you're only saying that because you're recruiting me. And, he's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, oh, that's what the kids are thinking. It's like, he doesn't know me yet. He can't trust me yet. It's not his family or, his top coach from the club or from high school. And if those guys aren't in the business, or if those guys aren't directly talking to us and knowing exactly what our thoughts are on the kid, then they're going to get misinformation. It's just the way it is. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids will jump on the higher rated one that, and not actually what's the best fit for them or what's going to get them on the field the quickest. It's going to be the one that they get to brag about the most. You see that unfortunately too much. And I think that if most of these kids can surround themselves with good people that are trusting and understand exactly what each coach is talking about and what they're all trying to do and what the best fit for them is, and someone that can actually speak to that stuff, then that'll help eliminate a lot of this, what you're talking about, the transfer portal. I mean, I think it's a good thing for a lot of kids because they can, find the right homes, but it's also finding a lot of kids that are upset and they're in the portal for the wrong reasons. They're there because they feel like they may have failed with the decision that they had just made. And it'd be good to get rid of a lot of that. That'd be a
I
nice.
agree. I think now I know for a fact that a lot of kids are completely misinformed about the transfer portal.
Mm,
They don't realize the consequences of going to the portal, if that makes
yeah.
sense. Each institution has their own policies. For example, my institution doesn't say anything about. I know some schools, if you ask to go in the portal, they take you away from the roster, take you from the website, cannot train anymore, and all that type of stuff.
Yep.
Whereas our institution advises not to do so. I wish we could have control a little bit better on that,
Mm,
but still, they advise us not to do so. But at the same time, I think the kids need to be accountable for that as well. You know,
sure.
I think and it doesn't matter if it's Division 1, 2, 3, and A. I mean, we are on the same boat. I think these generations coming up are different. Kids are getting different now.
Mm,
Kids like everyone thinks the grass is green on the other side. You know, everyone thinks that. I love the school. The school is fantastic. I don't like the color of the uniform. I'm transferring.
mm,
Okay, I know this is an exaggeration, but you know what I'm trying to say. They see a small thing that they don't like. They like 90% of the school, 10% they don't like it. They're transferring, but they might go to a school who's way way worse,
mm.
than what they have here or what they have there or what they have anywhere. I also feel like transfer portal doesn't. I don't know if you saw the stats, but I think the stats were saying that 50% or more than 50% of the kids who get into the portal end up staying in the portal. They don't end up going anywhere.
I believe that.
And
I
I
believe
think
it's
that was
more.
around 20-30% who actually drop the sport. And they end up not playing anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a lot into consideration because you know it's not just it's first of all you're going to transfer. Where are you going?
Mm,
First of all, you need to have highlights. You have kids who don't have a scholarship, in the school where they are, and they score 0 goals. They play 2 games. They have 0 assists, and they think they're going to get a bigger scholarship in some other school.
yeah.
And I'm like, come on, we need to be realistic about that, And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be realistic, you know. And then also, I don't know what you think about this, but like, it creates a situation on the team where if I have, two girls who play the same position, and one of them wants to transfer, the other girl, and I'll let them try normally. One of the girls is going to be like, why is he investing time on her if she wants to leave and I'm staying?
It's a good question.
Which
Right.
is fair. It's fair. I mean, I don't blame them to ask that. And then if their player who asks for transfer end up staying, there are bridges that are going to be broken a little bit sometimes, you know? Because I mean, I think all the coaches love where we are and we take really proud on our programs and ourselves and our team. And if a kid asks to leave and then end up staying, I mean, I think the trust breaks a little bit and needs to build up again. It's the
Right.
same thing if you coach your team and your kids find out that you are applying for multiple different other teams, right? I don't think your kids will be very happy about that. We ask commitment for the kids, but we need to give commitment back as well.
Yeah, I mean the instant gratification of the current generation is very very high in desire. I mean it's shocking how few kids are willing to grind and fight it out and like, oh, I'm going to work my way into this role. And I mean this is why we are very very honest with all of our players. We're
Mhm.
blunt with them. This is what you're walking into. You have the opportunity to start. You also have the opportunity to not play because they're also here and they're also good players. And it doesn't matter what you tell them. There's a lot of kids that are like, well, I mean, I'm still unhappy, for whatever reason. And, it's interesting to your point about kids that are in the portal, not finding a home or just quitting in general. And I will reach out to Division I kids over and over and over again. And most of them are going to say the same thing. Like, well, I want to stay in Division I. I'm going to go find another home. And then very, very quickly they're reaching back out because I am by far their best team that they can transfer to and go play. And it's I get Division I transfer all the time that came from scholarship, and so it just shows the bigger issue of what they're doing in the process before they make the commitment to go to a school. And don't get me wrong, I've said this a million times. If you're getting a boatload of money, I get it. I mean, I got a 5-year-old. If he's getting a big scholarship, that's going to push that school higher up on the list. I mean, I totally understand that. But if you're paying for school, you need to go look for, all the details, everything that matters. Would you spend this much money on a car or on a house or something really expensive without getting every single all the bells and whistles that you desire and everything that you want out of this huge, burden on your family? It's a financial burden that you're going to have to overcome. And are you getting everything you want out of that? Do you want to be in the portal for the wrong reasons? And unfortunately, there's a lot of kids that are on there. And I was just on Instagram the other day looking, and it had this laundry list of people that just committed. And it always cracks me up because every kid that commits to Division I school, they always put commit to play Division I before they even put the school. I mean, it always blows my mind. It's like you just committed to like a great university, but you still want to talk about the division before you talk about the great university. I mean, it blows my mind. It really does.
And about you saying about finances and the burden and the finance, I mean, what I always tell the girls and the recruits is it's there's a reason when you go out and you go buy your cleats, you buy them from Nike, you don't buy them from Walmart, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So I always say, sure, it might be expensive, might be a little bit more expensive than we anticipated, but if you're paying more, not always, but normally it can be that there's a reason why it's more. For example, we are not a cheap school. I can tell that already. But part of the reason why we're not a cheap school is because our replacement rate in the first, in the first 6 months after graduation is almost 100%. So
Mhm.
that means in the first 6 months after you graduate, the chance of finding a job is almost 100% in the area of your studies.
Right.
So there's a reason why we're expensive. So I always tell them at the end of the visit, finance is extremely important. Like you said, 100%. They need to factor that out. But I don't think it should be the deal breaker, if that makes sense,
Okay.
because there's a lot more. It's kind of like you said. Would you spend $50,000 on a house that has a hole in the freaking ceiling,
Yeah.
or spend $100,000 on a house that is beautiful and everything fits just fine? you
Right.
know and honestly, if even if you do, again, I don't know if there's research about this, but I'm pretty sure in what I'm saying, if you do the research on these kids who end up going to the transfer portal, I promise you that a big chunk of them are kids who just went to that school because this is the cheapest option. you know
Oh,
this is the cheapest option, and they end up in the portal because, well, it's cheap but it's terrible as well.
sure.
My experience, and when I say terrible, not necessarily academics or athletics, can be a mix of both, right?
Mhm.
Because we both know that academics and athletics, especially in college, is relatable, everything. So if academics are not great, what's the point of playing there? You
Mhm.
know, but also if academics are great, but if you are a good soccer player, you want to play, but if the soccer is terrible, that's not a point to be there either.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it needs to be a mix. But again, I just don't feel that the financial needs to be the biggest deal breaker, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. You know,
Mhm.
it's an investment, like we said.
Yeah, that was great, Felipe. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that's some of the differences that are there. And again, thank you for coming on. And we'll have to have you on again soon. Appreciate it.
Let me tell you, Scott, I like these type of things because it's the first time I participate in one.
Mhm.
But I like these type of things because, first of all, for us coaches, I feel the more we talk, the more we see that we are not very different alike, if that makes sense. Our thoughts are similar.
Mhm.
And the more people hear this, the more they see, okay, they are alike. Doesn't mean that they are twins, but means that, okay, coaches actually have the same, thought process. Because sometimes when kids come, definitely on our campus, on your campus, and we had this conversation, you think, they tell that to everybody, or they're just trying to sell the program. But after they hear this, they're going to be like, okay, they actually have the same line of thoughts. It's not just the coach who's telling me on individual meetings that Transport is a scary place.
Mm,
It's all the coaches are thinking the same thing.
yeah.
You know, and that's good for people to hear this because it's important. I think helps everybody. I think.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're ex-professional player that had a different journey than I did to get here and coaching a Division II women's team. And I'm just a kid from Virginia. Grew up here playing high school soccer and club soccer, and I coach Division III men. And we are saying the exact same thing.
Mhm.
And you're right. I mean, this is the whole point of this. It'd be nice to send this message out to everybody so that they can see this and help make them, make a better decision or make the best decision, I should say.
And also, let me add one thing that we're talking about this generation. A big challenge that I feel that this generation faces is the opportunity, if that makes sense. Like
Mm,
that happens a lot during the games and stuff. Let's say you two both play the same position, and Scott is a starter, you know, and Scott is definitely by far the best player.
Most likely.
And Scott gets injured, and she's jumps in and start playing, and he's being outstanding. I mean, he's playing great. You come back off injury, and you go to the portal because, well, I'm not a star anymore. The coach is just being an idiot. The coach is not playing anymore. Kids don't understand that it's about the opportunity, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Sometimes you're the best man for the job, but you didn't get the opportunity yet. You know, and that comes with what you're saying. The kids this generation don't want to put sometimes the work and outwork people to try to get to that standard where they want to be. It's a big challenge as well.
Yeah.
Big
Agreed.
challenge for us coaches to deal with that.
Yeah. I don't
Yes, sir.
envy you guys dealing with that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The whole instant gratification thing. So yeah. Anything else?
That was good.
You guys good?
Yeah. Good chatting with you, Felipe. That was awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I'm
It's
gonna hit
good.